I am so excited to have my friend Brianna Belton here. She is the master of all things creation and styling. So, Brianna, we are so happy to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
So, let's start. Let's just dive right in. Why don't you tell us all about who you are and kind of where Brianna Belton design began?
Okay, sure. Um, I guess I just love all things creative, and that was just bred in me from when I was younger. It was always a hobby. It wasn't until I had my little boy Huxley that it became I realized it could be a career, and I wanted to fulfill my passion every single day. And so, what started in my garage has now led us to our beautiful new studio here, where we do all things creative: weddings, events, home design, flower club, rentals,
Wow.
just anything and everything.
And where is your studio located?
So, we are in Bossier City,
Okay.
North Bossier City. Yep.
Amazing. And so before you had your studio, where did you kind of work out of? You said your garage. Is that
So, yeah, so it started at my house and in my garage. And actually, my main assistant is still with me, but she's been with me from the beginning out of my
wow?
garage. So, we were just talking yesterday how much we've grown and just the amazing changes we've seen from working all night long in the garage to just trying to function and make it happen to we had from there moved downtown, which was nice. It was a very small space, but it did separate home and work for me. We
Sure.
outgrew it really, really quick. And so things just lined up, and it's amazing how it all did line up to have our new studio built right in the middle of COVID. But when things were kind of slowing down and shutting down, we were able to get moved and get set up. And then now we're taking on more weddings than ever. Everybody's making a comeback with they call it the revenge of weddings. So, and then during COVID, everyone sat at home and was
Right.
tired of looking at their floors and everything else. And so the home side really grew.
Okay.
So we're so thankful to have this large space to do all the things.
That's amazing. So going back to the beginning of your journey, did you go to school to be a florist? I'm assuming the whole business started with flowers. Is that correct?
It
Or was it
did. It
styling?
did.
Okay.
So I actually went to school for business. And during that time, I worked for a dentist for 10 years. His wife was an interior designer, and she did a lot of weddings and events and all things creative, just like me. And once she realized I love that, I would help her on the weekends. And so she encouraged me to get my floral license. To me, it's not one of those things you need to be able to fulfill it. It's just one of those things you're born with. But Louisiana
Sure.
requires you to have a floral license. And
Okay.
so she encouraged me to get that. And then I helped her with weddings and events and home styling. And then my husband's job, that's when we lived in Monroe. So my husband's job brought us to the Bossier Shreveport area. And when we moved here, I loved that dentist that I worked for. I actually drove back to Monroe for 2 years
Wow.
to work for him.
Awesome.
I still talk to him, but I knew that when I moved here, I wasn't going to keep going on that career path, and that I wanted to really fulfill the career of what I was considering my hobby at the time. And everyone told me it was the Bossier blessing that would come to fruition. And I believe it. I started doing weddings, and
Oh,
once I freed up my time and I was like, okay, Lord, you gave me this talent. Like, you could take it from here. But once I made myself available, it's insane how business just came. And I still have people ask me, they're like, where'd you come from? It's like you came from out of nowhere. And I'm like, I don't know. It's just been a huge blessing to be here. And God just opened so many doors for me.
that's amazing. And I love what you said when you just made yourself available. It's like you didn't ask for this. You didn't know where this would, what it would turn into, but you were simply
Right.
a willing vessel.
Right. It's terrifying to leave that security of a 8 to 5 job, a weekly
Yes,
paycheck. Like, I had no idea what I was going for.
sure.
But now I look back, I'm like, man, I should have done it a long time ago.
And it's having a lot of faith in yourself. I'm kind of in that beginning stages of the entrepreneur life as well, and I have to prove to myself daily, like, okay, you can do this. You don't need to go back to a regular job.
Right.
You
Right.
can do this.
Right. There's times it's terrifying, and you just have to be confident. And I can't tell you how many times I wing it, but it always
Yeah,
works.
that's amazing. Okay, so you were driving back and forth, from Monroe because you loved your job. And by the way, I never knew you were a dental was it a hygienist or assistant?
I was a dental assistant. I was actually his
Assistant.
only assistant for over 10 years.
Unbelievable.
I know, crazy.
Well, and it's crazy because you had to wear scrubs, so I didn't even put two and two
Yes.
together. And scrubs are my passion, so I love that.
Yes. Well, that's what I love about you. I would have to go buy the traditional scrub sets with the pants, and I had this elderly lady that would rip the
Yes,
pants up the seam and somehow make the skirts work because I wanted the cute matching sets. I didn't want to
yes.
look like the oddball. But I'd worn skirts my whole life, so that wasn't going to change. And she did that. And so when I heard of you, I was like, man, I would have
Oh
really
my
benefited
word!
from
And I
that.
had no clue, no clue.
Yes.
And I want to give our
Yes. I wore
listeners
scrub skirts
just
for years.
that's amazing. I want to give our listeners a little snippet of how we personally know one another. And that is when I was engaged to my husband, Brock, we were searching for florists. And I had just followed you on Instagram for a while. We kind of were in the same community of people. So I had seen a lot of your work. And I told my mom, I was like, she's 4 hours away, but I want to meet with her. I want her to help us plan this wedding. And we drove the 4 hours and came and met you at this adorable place,
Yes.
I think down by your shop. And
Yeah, that
so
was our
bring
downtown area.
that's amazing. And so Brianna was the florist for our wedding and then was actually there the night and the day of setup and brought her team. And it was quite the journey
Yes.
to get there.
Yes, I remember your wedding like it was yesterday. Caitlin was
Oh,
with me at that one.
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Took
So
some
fun.
beautiful photos. I love it. So, Brianna, this is so cool. And I think so many people are going to enjoy hearing your story of what has stuck out to me so far is you just made yourself available. And I think that is just so key for a lot of our listeners of maybe they're struggling with the mundane but they need that security, and so it's how do I
Right.
take that leap of faith? And do you have any
Right.
encouragement or words on maybe something that stuck out to you in that season?
I just feel like if you take something you're super passionate about, you're naturally going to be good at it. And it is terrifying, I'm not going to lie, but I have talked to so many other creatives that were in that same situation. And I just say, do it. You're going to look back and wish you would have done it sooner and not been so scared, even though it's so scary in the moment. But I would rather look back with regrets that something
Sure.
failed than the fact that I just didn't even try.
I love that. So let's go back to when you were doing this out of your garage. You said you had an assistant, so it was just a team of
Yes.
two for most of the
Yes.
time.
Yes, it was Caitlin and I. We would work all night long. Now we're up to, I have 3 girls that work for me every week, and then we have girls that fill in on the weekends, just some younger girls. And then I have a lady that does my linens, and of course, my husband and some of the girls' husbands have helped us.
Yeah.
Occasionally, it just depends on the size of the event, but we've grown from a team of just me and Caitlin to a team of 4 every single day.
That's amazing. And so back when it was just you two, you said you would work all night. I mean, it
Yes.
sounds like the industry you're in is mainly geared towards weekends, I would assume.
It,
So
it is
walk
when
us
a lot
through.
of okay, a lot of weddings and events are weekends. Most especially weddings are weekends, and it's always a deadline. And especially dealing with fresh flowers, you can only do those so much in advance. And with just when it was just Caitlin and I, we'd be sitting at 2 a.m. at my kitchen table making boutonnieres, exhausted, tired, but we did it. Just same thing with just growing pains of a business. We were learning and winging it and figuring it out for ourselves. And so now we talk about, we're like, man, remember the nights we worked all night long? And we don't have to do that anymore because we have a better setup and a system, and I'm older now.
Right.
Not sure I could even do that.
So how did that impact? Because you said once you had your son, Huxley, that's when you really branched off by yourself, into this business. So how did you juggle having a family, being a wife, being a mom? And I'm sure he was fairly young when you started
he
this.
he was. I stayed at home with him for about 10 months, and
Okay.
I was just the passion for it was just growing inside of me. And I've always been a worker and a busybody, and so I knew exactly what I wanted to do. It was very hard to juggle. He thought I worked all the time, and that's why my husband and I decided we've got to get this out of the house.
Yeah.
I was just working 24/7, which I still do now, but at the same time, I can put it down and focus on him. not being at home. But with everything at my house, I just felt like I could never stop.
Yes.
And so we decided to move to the downtown studio, and had a precious lady in my church who helped me keep Huxley a few days a week where I could really get stuff done. And it's normally
Awesome.
the later part of the week once flowers arrive and we really
Sure.
start all the wedding and event setup and prep. Also, at that time, we mostly just did florals.
Okay.
The business has grown just from downtown to even our new space as far as providing linens and all the rentals, and then the home side. My business actually started with the home side when I was helping the dentist's wife do a
Okay.
lot of home design stuff. And I would do that as a hobby. One year I did 22 homes at Christmas, and didn't charge a penny, because it was
Oh
such a
my
fun
word.
hobby to me. But and I grew up. My mom was a teacher, but she loved all things creative, and she had friends that were florists and bakers, and she helped them. And so
No.
I just always thought it was a hobby, wasn't something that people actually hire you to do. But I learned really quick that people love that out of convenience, and they love the
Yes.
talent. Like they're all my clients are so different, and we have some amazing clients. I love them so much.
That's amazing. And I was going to ask you if you had, where you got your initial creativity or desire for that, but it sounds like your mom is a huge part in that role.
Yes, my mother and father are both deceased now, but my dad was an entrepreneur. He was super creative, more on like a tool and die side. And my
Awesome.
mom just had a natural knack for arts and crafts and all the fun things. And so I grew up surrounded by that. And it was just always fun. I never really
I
knew it
love
could
it.
be the business that it's become.
Right. So it's basically a hobby turned into now your livelihood,
Yeah,
which
yeah, I'm never
is
working.
so
It's so
cool.
fun.
That's awesome. So being in this creative space, I mean you kind of always have to be filling your mind with creative ideas and finding inspiration. So my first question is, do you go through times where you feel not creative? And when you are in
Yes.
that kind of slump, how do you get yourself out of that?
Normally just take a break. I have to step back a minute. My husband and I have made it a priority to take a really fun summer vacation every year. Now we've added in fall break and spring break. So we're trying to take three
Awesome.
really awesome trips. It's hard for me to stop working unless I'm out of town and away from my
Yeah.
studio. And so I can set it aside. But at the same time, when you're somewhere else in a new place, you're being inspired and encouraged. And I come back with a million ideas and all kind of fire to keep it back going, because I do lose creativity every evening. I lose creativity when I'm tired,
Yeah.
and I get burnt out of the trends that brides get stuck in. And it's just my wheels are always turning. Pinterest inspires me, magazines inspire
Yes.
me, travel inspires me, just meeting new people inspires me, and it's really just being able to educate those brides and make them willing to try something new, which keeps that passion burning and keeps us going.
Love that. Love that. So, if you could pinpoint kind of the hardest part of your job, obviously you have learned to cope with your weekends being kind of tied up with
Right.
events and work events.
Right.
So I think that's super cool that y'all prioritize traveling. And I think it's also really cool as a husband and wife duo that he understands, like, look, I need to take her away so that I
Right.
can let her relax. I think that's being
Right.
super self aware and is needed in marriage. So, what would you say is the most challenging or your least favorite part of your job?
Um, well, backing up a little bit, the least favorite part was probably the coordinating and being out until 1 and 2 a.m. at events. So, towards the end of last year, I decided I needed to give up something because my business had so many different faucets that it was getting exhausting, and I wasn't sure. There was something I wasn't liking, and I figured it out. It was the coordinating. And so we did let that go, which really helped. Other trying times are deadlines. Weddings every weekend, it's a deadline. Like you got to be done
Yeah,
before photos start and before they're ready for pictures and guests start arriving. And so there's always that crunch time that gets a little intimidating, but
sure.
we're getting really good at the timing of when venues let us in and just learning how much time an installation takes and that sort of thing too. We're getting better and better.
That's awesome. And I'm sure you've kind of developed just a list of vendors that you work with around your area, probably more times than not, it's the same group of people.
Yes.
Okay.
We have an amazing community of some of the most talented people here in our area. We're super blessed. Some of my best friends in this area are vendor friends that we've just worked with over time, and they've just become the friendships that have blossomed with them has been amazing for me, especially for living here. We don't have any family here. And so I always say the girls that work for me are some of my closest friends, but also
Yeah.
the community of vendors that we have here are amazing. And now we do events in other places too, where we have to learn new vendors. And that's always fun too. It's a challenge, new space, new vendors, but that's always fun and exciting too, because we've met people from all over and we've kept in contact with some of them. And been able to work with them more than once. So it's really fun. It's the wedding and event industry is a super tight knit industry, and it's really cool once you're in it to see.
Yeah, that's it probably just feels like family at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So now currently you said you're in a new studio, you're in the process of rebranding, you have a team of a couple girls. How was it kind of delegating some of these roles? Did you have to train these girls and then delegate? Did they come in as
Yes.
experts?
I'm terrible at delegating, and I'm the first to admit that just because I've always done it myself and I have a certain
Sure.
way. It may not be the best way, but I have a way of doing it. However, they've learned how over time, just how I work, how I deal with stuff, like how I would see something. And so I have been able to delegate. They each have their own roles now. However, we still work as a team on every event. Just everybody's pitching in and knowing we get the job done. But one of my girls has completely taken over. She's our flower club coordinator. That's like a monthly
Awesome.
subscription service for flowers. I'm pretty much hands off of that now. Um, Caitlin is all things creative. She is super talented and can literally do anything. And so she helps me with all the creative parts of the harder installations and the home design and just doing sketches, that sort of thing. Macy is our new manager who she's been with us for just a couple months now. And so she's still kind of in a training learning process, just helping us get anything and everything done with the rentals. We are releasing a new rental line in just a couple weeks, October 15th. It'll be called Lilac Lane Rentals. Our
Awesome.
rental collection has always just been available to our brides. But this year alone, we've started having a carpenter build some really cool props, and we have gone to market and found just a really curated collection of beautiful like boutique style furniture and things that
Awesome.
brides and clients can rent for their events. And so we are making that accessible to all brides, and that will be released soon. So we're super excited about that, but also know that the team will be growing really quick really soon.
Sure. Yeah. So Lilac Lane, is that where your studio is located? Is there something?
No, I'm actually on Hazel Jones.
Okay.
We love an actual lilac flower. Comes in purple or white. And I don't know if you've ever seen it fresh. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's one of my favorites.
Okay.
And so I was just sitting down with a girl that was helping me with branding, and it just came about, and I've loved it, and it stuck. So
Love that. Love that so much. So I do follow your social media and love seeing how involved your husband is. I've seen him like making rentals and backdrops and things
yes.
for you. Is he still at his other full-time job?
He is, and we're kind of working through that right now because I would love him to be here with me full time. That's another one of those leap of faith that we're just going to have to
Yes.
take one day, but
It's
we're terrified.
amazing.
And he does love where he's at, but he still helps us anything and everything we need. Now that we have a larger team, he hasn't had to be there so much, and the fact that I want him to be with our son on the weekends,
Yes.
where because he can bring him to see me, or he'll grab me and the girls food, or just but he picks up rentals every weekend. He's
Oh, wow.
downtown at midnight picking it up because we don't want the girls, or and I don't want to be out
Sure.
there. You just never know in this day and time. And so he still works every weekend, and he does pottery behind our studio where he's trying to start making our flower club vases.
That's
We're
awesome.
both He's probably even more creative than I am, and so but we
Wow.
work together well, so it's a lot of fun.
So your flower club, when you launched that, I had just moved to St. Louis and was so sad. And I even think I emailed like, "Can you deliver to St.
Probably.
Louis, please?" And
We
then
have
some
so
of
many
your
people
go ahead,
so
sorry.
many people want us to ship it. Too scared to
Yes.
do that just yet with fresh flowers. We
Well,
are hoping to expand.
okay, when you figure that out, I will be your first person to sign up
Okay.
because I love it. And I also love,
Yeah.
I was reading on your website this morning that you can ship it or not ship it, you can deliver it unassembled so that the person
Yes.
could. How cool is that?
Yeah, so we started doing that during COVID. COVID kind of shut down events for a minute. And as a creative, you just got to figure out the next thing and roll with
Yep.
it. And so I thought, how fun would it be to still be able to work with flowers? Um, Gives people something to do with their homes. And
Yes.
that kept me so busy during COVID. So every Friday, Huxley and I would just load up and he would ride with me and we would just go leave bucket of
Oh,
flowers, the vase, the wire, everything they needed by their door, ring the doorbell, text them, tell them it's there. So it was completely um, social distancing, all that. We didn't even have to see each
sure.
other. And people signed up for that weekly. And they would say, me and my daughter look forward to it every week. It's given us something to
Oh,
do and just the flowers to brighten the space. So things got better with COVID. Things got back to normal. People still wanted it unassembled because they love to play with flowers. They love our workshops and things. And
yes.
so we still have several people that do that. So that we just kept it as an option because it is a lot of fun.
That is so cool. And it kind of gave people that outlet to learn a new skill, which COVID granted all of us the time to
Right.
do that. But then also,
Right.
flowers just, I mean, they speak life and they breathe life into any place you put them. So
Right. Yeah,
I
people
love
had so
that.
much fun. It was so fun. They would always send us pictures of their creations, and it was so fun to
Oh,
see.
that's so cool. So, being a mom and a business babe boss lady, and your business exploding, how are you balancing now with having an older son? Can you like explain? Do you have certain times that you just dedicate to Huxley or to your husband and how you've had to maneuver kind of balancing all of these roles?
It's been super challenging and hard. But Huxley, he goes to a private school, so there's no school bus. So I have to pick him up, and he loves for me to pick him up. So I do try to make it a priority that I'm the one in Carline. Every now and then I have to send one of the girls to pick him up and bring him here to me at the studio. And he doesn't necessarily mind that, but he loves to see me in Carline. So
Yeah,
that
sure.
is my priority every day. We ride bikes every evening. Just if I can just put down my phone and be present and look him eye to eye, and then I feel like he's getting what he needs. There's been a lot of mom guilt at times, but he's grown up in this. He's been to every venue in this town. He knows everyone that
Oh.
works them, and he loves it. He uses my studio as a skating rink, so he just skates around the clients. And I'm like, if they're not happy with that, then maybe we're not a fit, because I'm just doing what I have to do. So
Absolutely.
uh,
And who
they all
couldn't
love
be
him
happy with
though,
that? Yeah,
right?
that's and him growing up in it, like he's going to love it. He's going to
Oh
learn
yeah,
to
yeah.
yeah.
He's something. I'm like, he's gonna know how to order the perfect flowers one day. He may be the only 8-year old that knows what chinoiserie is and how to say it correctly. So
I don't even know what that is or how to say it. So that's awesome.
it's the blue and white pottery that's so popular.
Okay,
It's
I love it.
it's
I just didn't know the technical
yeah,
name
it's
for it.
yeah. So it's called chinoiserie. He even brought me ice cream one night in a chinoiserie bowl, and he just randomly says, "I put yours in chinoiserie." I'm like, okay, wait a minute.
That's amazing. I love it. So, I know you are a faith filled lady and running your own business. And how has that intersected with your business life? And let me give you an example. I will have girls, um, very, they don't have ill motives, but they kind of either want a discount or a handout or just because they feel like we're kind of in the same community. And that can be a hard
Right,
place to navigate for a small business owner.
right,
And outside world doesn't understand, like when you give that giveaway, you truly are just, that's, money in your pocket that you're just handing to
right,
them. So
right.
do you have words of wisdom? I'm sure there's tons of events that you could do for churches and for nonprofit organizations and things that they might ask you to do it for free or for a discounted rate. How have you navigated that?
It's a really hard one for me. I was once a budget bride, and so I totally get it. And I get asked all the time for giveaways and fundraisers and things. And so we really just set aside an amount that we can do each quarter, tax purposes, and because we want to. We want to
Sure.
help the community and do what's needed. And so I don't mind food bank, things like that. The cool thing about our community, there's a lot of fun roles here. Like we recently did an event at Scyport, which is like a little discovery museum for kids. But you would set up a table and it was like a competition and people vote. And then whoever wins, a certain amount of money goes to your charity of choice. And so two local friends, one's an artist, one's a jewelry maker. We did it together. And so we had chosen the food bank. So we were able to use our creative outlet to show what we could do, but also for a good cause. And so things like that are fun. As far as discounts and things, my girls that work for me, I love to give stuff to them and help them all the time.
Sure.
And they've never been the type to want to take advantage. So I have not really had to worry about that. And brides, when they need things, I'm able to just talk them into something different that I know is going to get, more for their money and make us
Yes.
both happy in the long run.
Yes. And I love what you said of just setting aside each quarter. This is what we can do. This is kind of what our policy says. And that way, if something you're protected, not that you
Right.
have to be, but you've kind of put that in place to where you don't feel
Right.
like you have to overextend.
Right. What's the same thing for like styled shoots? Styled shoots are great advertisement because it's really just setting up a beautiful scene, show brides, clients what you're capable of. You can do your style. But from the florist perspective, it costs a lot of money because I'm having to just buy a lot of flowers just for a photo.
Wow.
Um, and even though there's photographers I love, their pictures may not reflect my branding. So it's
Hmm.
really not beneficial to me. Nothing against them. Their work is beautiful. It's just my branding's like a more light and airy, just for an example. Um, and so having just a budget set or so many styled shoots set, I'm able to just put limitations on it and it's nothing personal. It's just what I have to do as a business. And then even just finding the
Absolutely.
time to be able to stop and do that.
Right. I love that. And I've seen you do like different events at your studio where you'll set up, I think the Easter Bunny came and like
Yes, we've
how
had
fun is
Santa.
that is
It's
so
so
cool.
fun. So our studio was built mostly because we wanted to get everything into one place. However, it just the more space you have, the more stuff you get, and the more you grow. We still have 3 storage units, and
Yes.
our studio turned out so beautiful that people wanted to have events here. We have done some workshops. We did we called it a spring soiree, and we did a summer soiree where you could just sign up, come learn how to do flowers, eat some fancy foods, learn
Awesome.
how to set a table, just some tips and tricks from professionals. A friend of mine who's amazing stationer, she does beautiful calligraphy, all the beautiful paper things. We did it together. Super successful and super fun. So we hope to do more of those. But we've also had Santa come. We just wanted a prettier environment, more necessarily
Yes.
than Bass Pro, and through COVID, we just wanted that more boutique style. And my assistant Caitlin, she's an amazing photographer, and so she takes all the pictures, and it was a really big hit last year. So we're excited for this year. It's going to be even bigger.
That's so fun. And yeah, you get to offer those pictures to the parents and they get keepsakes
Yes.
and that's got to be really fulfilling and rewarding.
Yeah, it is, and it gives people a chance to see our studio. Isn't We're open every day, but it's not just something the public wanders into.
Sure.
Just because it's more like a workshop for us, and so it gives people a chance to see our studio, see what we do, and experience something that we can be a part of because we're not your everyday florist, and so there's ways to offer them things that they may not get otherwise that they would want.
Yes. And it sounds like, as a lot of businesses did, but through COVID, you just really had to pivot. And that's
Yes,
probably a key word around there is okay, let's pivot. And the flower club, we're going to make these changes and make it accessible this
yes,
way. So I know the business world is ever changing of having to figure out, you know, how can we make this work? What else do we need to
Right.
do? And it sounds like y'all do that very well.
Right. Just as a creative, you just got to keep rolling with
You
it.
keep
As a
going.
business owner,
Yeah,
you can't just stop. So you figure out what's next.
that's right. So as, someone who's a little further down the road and you've experienced success, what is some words of encouragement you would give someone who maybe wants to do this or is starting out kind of in these areas that you are learning to master?
You just have to be super confident in yourself, even when you feel like you don't know what you're doing and winging it to your clients. You just be super confident in what you do. And if you're passionate about it, you're going to just automatically be good at it. And you just have to be willing to take that leap of faith, and God's going to protect you no matter what.
Yes. Yes. I love that. So passion is key. And I love how passionate you are about what you do. And how long have you been doing this now?
Gosh, I've been doing this as a business, it started when Huxley was a newborn, and he's 8 years old now. And so
Wow.
Brianna Belton formed then. Hobby years and years before that, but that's when Brianna Belton Design was formed.
That's amazing. And to see that you're still this passionate about it and always pivoting and
Yes.
providing new ways to be creative and make people feel at home. And I just love that so much. So, Brianna, we're going to start wrapping this up, but do you have kind of like a life message or which we kind of just talked about what you would give someone who is starting out in this role, but for personally for yourself, do you have kind of a key phrase or something that you really hold on to that you would like to share?
Not necessarily. I feel like part of me does stuff naturally because I love it and want to help people. And we're just always surrounded by so much celebration and love with weddings and birthdays and baby showers. We call it the circle of life. We
Love
get to
that.
be just a part of everybody's celebrations. And that's what life is all about. So I don't really have a perfect saying or anything that I go by. Just a day to day and being part of everybody's life. It's super fun.
I love that. What a cool industry to be in. Okay, and one question that we're kind of coining for the skirted professional, and it can be funny, it can be serious, however you want to answer it. It's the first thing that comes to your mind. But what is saving your life right now?
I guess I would have to say Coca-Cola and Jesus.
Okay.
Everybody asks me how much coffee I drink daily because of how much energy I seem to have, but I've never
Yeah.
been a coffee drinker. So,
So it's Coca-Cola. I love it.
yes.
And it's funny because a lot of other guests will say coffee.
Coffee,
And
yes.
I'm not a coffee drinker either. So I
Right.
100% with you. So if
So
anyone knows
funny.
how to get you through the day or, uplift your spirit, they bring you a giant Coke.
Just to pick me up with a Coca-Cola.
I love that. Well, it was such an honor to have you on here today. And I really feel like you sharing your passion and kind of how you've just made yourself available. I think that's going to really speak to a lot of our listeners. And you're such an inspiration for ladies in the business world. But I think it's also good to see the vulnerability of it's been hard and it's terrifying. But,
Right.
something, a phrase one of our previous guests said was you just do it scared. And that is
Right.
kind of that's kind of a
Right.
phrase that we use now. It's that's literally you don't know that you're doing it scared in the moment. You just have to keep
Right.
going. But I love how much you've shared and been vulnerable with us, just some of the struggles and even giving up your weekends and maybe not even living that normal of a life, what we would say normal with
Right.
the way your job is. I
Right.
think it's going to be very helpful. So thank you again for sharing your passion and your wisdom. And I look forward to this episode being released.
You're so welcome. So great to hear your voice.